All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Well, first and foremost, thank you everyone for joining this particular webinar, LinkedIn, using personal and business branding to help you grow your business. We're delighted that you were able to make it. And on the call, we have two industry experts, Sonia Luna, who is the CEO of Aviva Spectrum, and Siza Tahan, blog talk radio producer and marketing guru, also of Aviva Spectrum. So welcome everyone. Throughout this webinar, it is our hope that you'll be able to use LinkedIn to maximize exposure for you and your business. You can learn from some of the successful experts on how to market yourself and your business from LinkedIn, learn some of the do's and don'ts, and of course, learn how to strategically use this powerful resource as a marketing tool to help you grow your business. There will be time for question and answering at the very end of this. So in the meantime, we will be muting your phone. And when Q&A opens up, you'll be able to use the little bubble in the middle to be able to type a question. You can either do it at the host or at Sonia, and then we will be able to answer your question that way. So without further ado, Sonia and Siza.
Siza and I are very glad to be here with you today for this hour webinar on LinkedIn personal branding and business branding. Siza, anything you want to say to kick things off?
Just want to say welcome to all, and so happy to be here. It's a pleasure to give you this information today.
Fantastic. Now let's get into some LinkedIn strategy and marketing. So the first thing that Siza and I did is we wanted to make sure that we were determining the goal, of social media. So what was our real goal? Was our goal trying to get an appointment with a prospective buyer, meaning book a face-to-face meeting? Was it to determine some type of influence for our company brand in relationship to other competitors? In other words, did we look at competitors and how they were performing in terms of followers and postings, et cetera, and then what we could do to maximize our marketing efforts in the same platform? And we did do that, and we created kind of a good name for ourselves. It takes a while, so be patient, but we have created a pretty solid name recognition. So we've looked to our competitors and how we're performing, and really that was our main goal. We didn't think LinkedIn was going to necessarily book an appointment. It created the connection, and then from there, that connection allowed us emails, phone calls, et cetera. Then that allowed us to book an appointment, which that was our ultimate outcome. The other goal we wanted to achieve was becoming a subject matter expert. When you look, feel, act, and share information, you start being respected in the market. Not to mention, price becomes less of an issue because you are that SME in the marketplace. So LinkedIn allows you to provide that value. For us, getting face-to-face meetings does happen, but it's just like anything else. It takes a little bit of time. Siza, do you want to share with the audience today about setting goals for your target market, but more importantly, like the function you have in the organization? So, for example, we are a compliance consulting firm, and so we have senior auditors, we've got managers, we've got directors, et cetera. Can you share some of the best practices we found by setting goals by the level of person in the organization?
Right. So some of it is going to be what your role is in the organization. So if you're a marketing professional in the organization, you definitely want to be posting and putting things out there. If you are an internal auditor, you don't have as much. But for instance, with Sonia, we do a lot of posting on her behalf. And the other thing that I wanted to mention also was really to determine if LinkedIn is the best space for you, or if one of the other social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and determine really if you are a business-to-business company or if your goal is business to consumer. So if you're a business to consumer, you might be better off doing something like Twitter, like Facebook, and like Instagram, and especially if you're a visual company. So if you have a product that you want to put out there that would benefit from a lot of pictures, Instagram is a great place for that.
That's right. And in terms of content creation, another hint would be looking at what your competitors are doing, what platform they are, right, maximizing their marketing efforts, so you can kind of feel out the different platforms. And we're actually going to cover some tools today that actually can minimize your social media time that you spend and yet kind of hit a lot of different platforms all at the same time. I went to peek at Wikipedia to kind of get a source of what is personal branding. And personal branding really is just your marketing you and the career of what you bring to the table. So in other words, I think there was a stat about most people on average have 7 different careers, okay? They might bob and weave into different parts. Let's say if you take an accountant, they started out in public accounting, but then they leave and then they become a member of the finance team. And then from there, they kind of bob and weave and leave into some part of the operations, right? So it doesn't happen overnight, but personal branding is making yourself look and feel like the subject matter expert for the position that you were given. Cisa, can you share with the audience on some of the personal branding do's and don'ts in terms of either should you mix personal branding with business branding, and then how would someone determine, now I'm mixing too much, and when's the best time to really just either mix a little bit, and then other times where you should really keep it separate?
So really your personal branding is tied to who you are. So it's things like your photo, which is a big deal on LinkedIn, for instance. You definitely don't want to have a photo where you're cropped out of it or you're at a party and it's like a little, a picture of you and kids or dogs or whatever. Save that for Facebook. Have a really nice professional photo of you on LinkedIn. And that's going to follow you, whether you're at this company or, at a different company, and that's, your company brand. But also what we did with our photos is actually, Sonia paid for us to have a professional photographer. If you don't have the budget for that, I remember one time I just wanted a new picture on LinkedIn, and so I, got a new haircut, and I had my husband take a picture of me in the backyard just by myself, headshot with a suit on. So that can definitely be something that you do. As far as your brand for your company, there is a little bit of mix, but really the personal branding is you fall, with your career path, and your company branding is really, whether you're at a company that, like us, has internal audit services, or you're at a company that, maybe does engraving or something else, then you're going to want your post to reflect, here's what my company can do, and here's, my capability as it relates to that.
Right, and then the business branding, which you brought up some very good tips. In other words, the headshot is part of, we're such visual creatures, aren't we? I mean, we immediately make a lot of judgments when we look at somebody's photo. And so LinkedIn is your ultimate, business platform. And so, like you said, those little selfies or one with a dog or you, eating some great, fantastic food at a great restaurant is not really the platform. And if you start looking at dentists in particular, or accountants or lawyers, the ones that make the biggest impact on that platform of LinkedIn are the ones that actually have a professional headshot. And you don't have to spend a lot of money, like Cisa mentioned, about her own story of her going to the beauty parlor, right, and then getting her hair done and makeup, et cetera, and just taking a quick shot. And in the background, the old one, if I recall, it was just kind of a green. It was outside, but it wasn't dare I say, cheesy. And in terms of defining business branding, I went to entrepreneur.com, and they're defining it as you're differentiating your company compared to any other product and service and even the competition. Okay, so
right.
it's what sets you apart from that competitor down the road or that other competing product that wants to take those dollars away from your customer. And in terms of branding goals, I know that this is the kickoff to a wonderful year, at least I hope, knock on wood, right, for most of you. Here are some things to consider, okay? So this is like on the left-hand side, you can see this is by the numbers and the why factor, and then when should you consider measuring it? Okay, for example, a number of recommendations is top on our list. I really think LinkedIn is becoming the Yelp of professional services for sure, and it can be for products as well. The measurement, you might want to consider looking at this semi-annually. Some people do it quarterly. I know for us, we definitely have that as part of our annual review process, and we want people to, if we're doing great customer service, even in auditing, as painful as that may sound to some people, there are clients out there that value the service and the way we perform that service to them. So it's a big deal inside our organization. Also, by the numbers, you may want to look at the number of your contacts and looking at some type of increase. Is it a 5%, 10% increase year over year? So it's kind of who do you know? So we've used that strategy not only to increase our participation for promotional things like webinars that we do, but it also allows me to do some digging and getting some intelligence on who knows who to get me that introduction, to get that face-to-face meeting. So we kind of look at that monthly, and we definitely have goals for everybody. Tagging prospects, that's just saying, you know, how am I going to categorize this connection that I just did in LinkedIn? Because you want to value your time on those connections that really matter to you and the organization and meeting your goal to get that face-to-face meeting. And then also number of followers. So do you want to increase it by 5%? Because you want to look like that subject matter expert, that SME that we were talking about earlier. And then also profile views is another measurement technique that you can say, look, how many views are people looking at my blogs within LinkedIn? And we'll kind of cover where those blogs are located a little bit later. But Cesar, can you share some of your own experience on the importance of, you know, tracking the progress, and also some of the LinkedIn recommendation, you know, best practices that you've learned?
Sure. Before I do that, I'm not sure if anyone else is having this trouble, but I just had something flash across the screen about audio. So for the audio, you need to, you know, dial in as well as the link. So hopefully that person got that message. So how important is it to, you know, track your progress and also LinkedIn recommendations? Like Sonia said, LinkedIn's recommendations are huge. So when I, was fairly new to LinkedIn, but I really didn't have any recommendations because I really didn't see the value. And I had some endorsements, which of course are just little, you know, people saying, oh, endorse, click, really easy. Well, this year, you know, as one of my goals, I was challenged to do 5 recommendations. And so what I did was I went on LinkedIn. It's a very easy process. You just do your, you know, you click on your profile, and then there's a little button that says ask to be recommended. And what I did was I customized the script a little bit, but anybody that's currently connected with you, you can ask for a recommendation. So I asked for those recommendations. I made phone calls. So in addition to asking for the recommendation online, I also made the follow-up phone call, or I called first and said, hey, I'm going to ask you for a recommendation. Just want a couple sentences about, you know, what your interaction with me was like as the Blog Talk Radio producer or what have you. And then what was really exciting is when Sonia and I sat down to do my performance review, it was midway through the year, and I already had my 5, so I'm like, hey, I can up this to 10. And then later in the year, I was kind of panicking because I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get to 10? Because I, you know, really haven't been giving this attention. But again, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I just kind of kept asking, and now I'm actually up to 11 recommendations. So real exciting.
Yeah, and people look at those recommendations. They want to know who's recommending you on LinkedIn, and it just adds a lot of value to an organization when you have all your staff members and your team members, because really for us as a service firm, they're not buying a widget, they're buying people. And so when they look at the team holistically, we just say, take the Pepsi Cola, challenge, go on LinkedIn. And all I ask of you is just really take a look at my competitors' people and our people. And just as a sanity check, also look at who's been writing reviews on LinkedIn. And that gives everybody a pause. Our buyer is typically the CFO or the audit committee on the board. So these are very sophisticated buyers, and they are buying people. They are buying time, okay? And that kind of sets them back. And even though we are a small company, we're still performing extremely well compared to competitors that are like 1,000 times bigger than us. So it is important. I'm glad that you shared your story, Cisa, and how LinkedIn helped you in terms of personal branding. Now, I wanted to get into meeting your personal branding goals. So one is consider joining some groups out there and be very conscious of what the types of groups, because there are tens and tens of thousands of groups. So think of metrics that matter. For example, number of members, how many they post. Consider commenting on some of the top player posts, and we'll get into the definition of players because we came up with that definition internally. But players, in essence, for this meeting your personal brand goal topic, think of those people that just really put out high value content on LinkedIn and commenting on them. Leverage the suggestions that LinkedIn has to add contacts. So if adding connections is one of your goals, LinkedIn has a huge mathematical algorithm running behind the scenes to allow you to go, LinkedIn thinks that we should be connected, and lo and behold, 9 times out of 10, it's actually a pretty good suggestion. And have your invitation script handy. In other words, you should have scripts for people that you want to connect with that are buyers. These are prospects. And then you want scripts for people that can refer you into your buyer, and you should have them by category. And have that script ready in a Word document so you can copy and paste to make your life a lot easier. Think about using InMail to introduce yourself to more people, and then also consider blogging monthly. Cisa, do you want to share some of the goals in terms of maybe meeting these personal objectives, these goals, but maybe some of the tools that might be out there to help you meet these personal branding goals?
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about posting through some of the, kind of things that make things a little bit faster. But like Sonia said, really a big time saver, obviously, is having that script ready for the different scenarios ahead of time. So if you have that ready, you can go, here, I'm sending an email about this. And so you just copy and paste. So when we're trying to get someone to be a guest on Blog Talk Radio, for instance, we have that script already. So we're going to share that all, later on in the process. But that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you, make contact with somebody. It's like, I've got the script. Here it is. Boom. You make a couple tweaks. You're done.
Exactly. And then also, how much is enough for profile setup? I know a lot of you are considering putting just your resume. I started this job. This was my title, et cetera, and these were my job responsibilities. I'm going to share with you the second bullet point. You may want to start with the value you brought to the organization first versus the tactical stuff you did at that organization. So here we go. Here, as the manager of ABC Company, I led the sales team of 10 representatives, having increased customer sales of X% and implemented a new sales strategy for 3 product lines. That is going to resonate with somebody that said that they worked as a sales manager for ABC Company versus saying, sales manager 3 years for this company, provided the, CFO, sales metrics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's very tactical and it's good, but I would consider stating more of the value you brought. So rephrasing those reports, like, did you save the CFO a lot more time? Did you come up with any new metrics in providing him the report, et cetera, that helped? What did that metric help accomplish? Make sure you add all your professional certifications and your education, and also think about highly regarded training. So, for example, Stanford, Harvard, those are very prestigious branded names, and they actually have certificates on a lot of different things. So if you've done them, and I'm just mentioning a few obviously well-branded names, but there's some great universities that have programs that you do get a certificate of completing that program. Also share something personal, like your interest. Do you like fishing and golfing, et cetera, or cooking? That's okay too. Share some projects that you have been involved with. So this could be a nonprofit project. It could also be projects related to article writing, and highlight those. So LinkedIn has not only added features for your, quote, resume, but also these little projects. And you can even add folks to the project and say, look, I didn't do this by myself. I did this with this article with so-and-so. I'm going to make a project in LinkedIn as part of my profile setup. And it allows that person to chime in and comment on that project. So for an example, you can go to my profile. You'll see a few projects that I've done with a few folks, both in article writing as well as in webinars that we've done, and we'll have our contact information later. But Cisa, do you want to share with the audience some best practices on, so let's say you set up your profile, how often should you check it?
I would say at least annually you want to go through and, like Sonia said, add certifications that you've received that year. If there's anything else that you want to add, or, maybe even, put in the forefront, and then, move some other stuff down so that, it's always, fresh. So at least annually.
Yeah, I would say you're dead on. I would say if there's a life change, once you set it up and you did a lot, and LinkedIn will tell you what percentage of completion you are on your profile. They say, oh, you're about 95%, and you're like, well, what's the 5%? They'll tell you where you are on your profile. But at least annually, or a life-changing event like you changed a job. That is definitely that is definitely changing. You finally got a professional certificate. You completed that. That took a lot of studying. Right. It took a lot of time.
Or promotion,
that
of course,
also
too. Yeah.
A huge promotion is great to add. Yeah. Let's cover a little bit about ideal groups. Not every group is equal to each other. So here's some characteristics to consider. So is it in your relevant industry? Does it have your ideal target in mind, your buyer? What kind of members are already in there, and how much is it growing? And then how many group managers does it have? And then what percentage of the stuff that's being posted, this is all subjective, okay, how much of it feels like it's just junk? Like it's like junk emails, junk posts all the time. So I put two in here that if we were to look at this group, we would look at ABC Accounting. Yeah, our CFOs in both of these groups. There's DEF group that's in LA. So 10K in the ABC Accounting, because look at the group name and title, it's probably very broad. But our buyers are typically in regional in terms of Los Angeles, but they've got 5K, so that's pretty good in terms of a regional group. And then this LA group is growing 10% on a monthly basis, whereas the larger one is 2%. At least the LA group has two managers managing the group, and the reason why that's important is who's monitoring that group posts and managing the advertisement and what gets on that group. And then you're going to look at junk. So you can see that ABC Accounting has a boatload of junk stuff that gets inputted, and then the other does not. So if it was me and my time, I would probably actually default to the DEF Group LA just to kind of give you examples of my mindset. Cisa, can you share about the value of what we've done to leave groups? So we thought it was a good match, and then we just said, not so much. We're going to leave this group.
Yeah. So what we found is, once we ask for something to be posted, the group manager in many cases reviews it and then decides if they're going to post your materials or not. But we had situations where even after we asked for something to be posted and followed up with the group managers, they still didn't post our material. And we're just like, you know what? We're not getting anything out of this group, especially because we want to be able to post our webinar series. We want to be able to post promotional things as well as things that we think think are going to be beneficial to the group. So if they're not posting our materials, we just said, okay, fine, these are the ones we're going to be leaving. In our review process, I think we do this probably about every quarter or so. We say who's posting, who's not, and then we say, okay, let's leave this group.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to find out your activity in the group because LinkedIn has a handy feature that says, here's your profile. What activity were you able to conduct in that group? And as Cisa mentioned, there's some group managers where we told them this was not a sales thing. This was, let's say, It could be, for example, you could be doing a white paper. In other words, it's not really a sales. It's very technical. The group members would benefit from it. And we even had interviews with people that are strategic leaders in our space. We said, look, this is an interview of so-and-so. Your group members would benefit. And so we felt like, hey, if they're going to block us on something that was not even a sales item, can you imagine when we have our quarterly webinars that we do want to promote? We're just going to constantly butt heads. So that was one of our metrics is we followed up 3 times and then we gave up. There was no 4th time. Now, in terms of LinkedIn group influence, think about creating your own group. Yes, it's going to take some time. You may want to just think through the pros and cons before you do it. And then you can also lobby to become a group manager because believe it or not, it does take some time to look at the posts, manage the content, et cetera. So you might want to be friendly with some of those managers that already manage a group. Why? You get to control the content of the postings and even get to create certain announcements, which is like an email blast to members of the group. And make sure you have consistent posts and accept new members on a timely basis if you do become a group manager. Now, the great thing about LinkedIn is you'll see this is our group, COSO and ERM implementation. This is a very technical group. Our competition is a nonprofit organization called COSO. They're barely at the 2,000 mark, and they started 4 years earlier than we did. The great thing is we can change the title of our group. It used to be you can only do it up to 4 times, but now LinkedIn allows you to do it 19 times. But Cisa, can you share a little bit about how providing good quality content keeps you relevant and how it's been working for us in terms of other groups?
Yes. So one of the things we do is we make sure that we, have something good that we post regularly. So we started doing all the posting ourselves and then decided that, wow, this is a lot for us to keep up with. So we also now, which you'll see on the next slide, we also recruit members to our group who have good posts elsewhere. And so they help us to, keep great content out there so that, that's relevant to the group.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about players. We mentioned earlier we were going to talk about people who are players in their space versus pure marketers. There's some people that are just like, they think they're in the old school of sales. They're like, buy today, get 10% off of your bulk, I call that old school, and education-based marketing are the players, okay? These are people that they are very strategic in what they write. They usually have 500-plus connections. They usually post on a regular basis. They put value, just high-value content, and they're not very salesy. They're not about themselves. They're more about the content that they're creating. Here's an example in our space. Norman Marks he's got a phenomenal profile picture. Why? Because this is him giving a keynote address to my profession of internal auditors, and he's a top contributor in a bunch of different groups. So I would consider him a player hands down. Cisa, can you share with the group about how else would you determine the best practice of determining a player and the value to a group and how to align yourself with some of these players in LinkedIn?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we do, we kind of look at other groups, and they're not necessarily competitive groups. They're just look at other groups and see who's posting in that group that has good content. And then we use our, wonderful scripts, which you'll see in a bit about, we flatter them and we ask them to come join our group. But then once they actually have some posts in our group, we make comments on their posts. And we also like their posts, so we kind of show them the love and, make sure that they know how much we value what they're bringing to the group and that they're continuing to post and helping us with great content.
Yeah, and here's an example of talking about scripts. Here's an effective script that we've used for recruiting players to create content for our group. Okay, so that's the main objective. So you can create a group, and if it's just you posting content and it's just you posting, good luck in increasing the membership.
It's
okay,
exhausting.
because
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And it's tiresome, so you really want to show some love, as she said. Here's a script that says, hey, I really liked your post in ABC group. You know, it provides this value to the members. Mm-hmm. I want to encourage you to join our group because it's fast growing. We're offering, a lot of value, and we go into what the value is, offering templates, webinars, blah. We'd like you to join, and then, of course, you're probably in it to win it too, okay? We hope that you get engagements for some of the services that you want to provide for our members, period, okay? So it has to be a win-win for everybody, and this script right here has actually helped us obtain other players, promote, and actually create, post good content in our group. Now, Cesar, how often, as a best practice, should people review their scripts, like similar to this one, inviting players to a group?
Yeah. So your script, I think you should probably review it at least annually. But of course, one of the things that we do is, very easy, quick tweaks. Like, hey, once our membership goes up, then just recently I changed this. Hey, now we have almost 2,000 members. And then of course, providing them the link to your group so they don't have to actually search for that is a really important thing as well.
That's right, putting that link in there so that way they don't have to be searching or trying to do a LinkedIn search for COSO and ERM implementation. That's another best practice for a lot of the scripts, which is down here, which I should have kept clicking on.
It's okay, you're doing great.
Yeah, blogging on LinkedIn. I was so glad to hear they finally added blogging on your profile. I can't tell you how just a phenomenal thing it is for us in exposure. It really level sets the small guy and the big guy, because if you're blogging junk, and the big guys do that and they have a lot of power to do that, they're still not going to get the presence that a smaller business is going to do if they provide a lot of value to the group as well as just their general contacts. So it helps build your personal brand, but you can link it to your business brand as well by clicking to your website, the showcase pages and company pages, and it keeps it fresh. So we have a policy that we blog monthly. This is a couple of postings that we did. You'll see it's a high quality image. We purchased a monthly subscription of images. I think the Getty Foundation owns the company. I think it's called iStock, right, Cisa?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's iStock.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, iStock is the company. Super inexpensive, but it gives you high-resolution pictures that you can do a ton of keyword searches on. But Cisa, tell us about how, you might actually, once you start blogging and posting, underneath your profile as a blog, what kind of key surprises did we notice about followers and then the number of contacts you have? Like, is there a discrepancy between the two?
Yeah, so we noticed recently that Sonia has a lot. First of all, she has a lot of connections. She has over 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. But as you can see here, we have 5,222 followers. She has, and that's because LinkedIn has a way, like she said, on the back end of kind of like having this whole algorithm that promotes good content. So it's like we've got like so and so is looking at your stuff, and so is looking, so it's quite a few followers now.
So the followers really in LinkedIn on the blogs are those folks that are, when you put that blog out, there's an extremely high probability that they want to see that content, that blog. So it's very important to link back to both. So there's ways to create hyperlinks in each blog. You can hyperlink to your website. You can hyperlink to your company page on LinkedIn. You can even hyperlink back to you. So it's been our policy that we have at a minimum 4 hyperlinks per blog post And it just does that. It hyperlinks back to my profile, website, LinkedIn company page, and then some type of external site that is of value, like the Wall Street Journal, LA Times, because sometimes we do quote outside resources just to make it make the content not only resonate with a higher group of people, but it validates what you're saying when you can actually get some content from, or at least quote the Wall Street Journal in our case, or we do the Journal of Accountancy. People find that more valuable, and they actually find it more intriguing that, oh, well, not only did she think this way, but also she can also back up that stance by using some of the industry standards in terms of other journals that have a very high brand recognition and reputation. Moving on to building your connections. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Sonia, that there was a great blog that we did recently, and then we were able to. Sonia found something that the White House had done about hiring millennials and keeping millennials. So I thought, wow, that's great that she was able to find that and link that because it was this huge study. So again, it added to her personal brand as well as our company brand.
Right, it validated that content, and then to build your connections. A lot of people say, well, should I accept every connection? I'll give you my thoughts, and I know Cisa's going to give her thoughts, but let me get into in terms of asking professionals to join you to be connected to you. Have a personalized script ready. It could be something like, you're probably part of an alum. It could be university related. It could be, big firm setting or company setting. You want to start inviting prospects first. Those are my first. If I had hour for hour, minute for minute, I always go for my prospects first. Clients are second. Vendors would be third, and then it would be other types of key connections. These are strategic, referral type connections, et cetera. And let's see where my profile, if we can get that going. So I have a premium account. You'll see I have over 500 plus connections. Cisa, can you share with the folks some best practices on when to determine, now you want me to connect with you, but I'm not really sure if I should connect with you.
Yeah. So usually what I do is, when someone asks to connect with me, if I think, hey, this might be of value somehow or somewhere down the road, I'll accept. But don't feel compelled to accept everyone who asks you. It's not like they're going to blacklist you or something else. Don't worry about that too much. What I also do is I check to see if someone wants to connect with me and they've actually taken the time to personalize a script. And so I do that with other people too. So if I personalize, then I know that it's somebody that took the time to do that. But again, don't feel like you have to accept everyone who asks you to connect with them. If you don't see that it's a value now or it might be a value down the road, don't worry about don't accept them. And also, LinkedIn gives you a way to delete contacts down the road as well. So if you want to delete a connection, if you connected with somebody by accident or something like that, you can also take them off of your connections.
Mm-hmm. And can you share with the audience about what should happen after you connect? So let's say you do a speaking engagement or networking event. It's some type of meeting or conference like the NGLCC conference. I know I do it the same day, and I also invite them to join our group. But any thoughts about marketing related items afterwards, Cisa, that you can share, and maybe even some tips about that LinkedIn mobile app called Connected?
Yeah, there's a new app called LinkedIn Connected, and it's great because, as Sonia and I were chatting the other day, if you're standing in line at Starbucks or Coffee Bean, you can click on that, and it only gives you the really key things that are happening that day. So it'll tell you somebody changed jobs, somebody got promoted, or somebody has a birthday today. So you can just check really quickly what's going on with your connections, and then make a comment or do something quickly while you're you're just, even in line someplace. But the other thing to make sure that you are doing regularly is, acknowledging birthdays, doing things like saying, hey, I noticed you had a work anniversary and congrats. Taking the time to kind of, just like we talked about showing the people who are doing your posts some love, showing them some love so that, that they know that, you're connected with them. But also, I think the other thing that we talked about a while back was, don't come on too strong. So once you've connected with them, don't, it's the equivalent of, hey, going on a first date and asking someone to marry you. So, just, take it slow. Don't feel like you've got to put all your eggs in one basket or put everything all in one place. And, the connection's not going to go away. More than likely, you'll have time to cultivate the relationship before you ask them for an appointment or what have you. So connect and take it easy and show them some love and, happy birthday and congrats on this and whatnot, and invite them to webinars and things like that. And then down the road, you can go for an appointment.
Exactly. And you'll notice that that's some really good advice, Susan. You'll notice that for folks of you who can see my screen on the prospects, and there's some tags, right? You'll see Jessica's a prospect level 5, and then I have friends and family, et cetera. Well, here's the mistake we did. We went crazy. We totally went crazy. We were like, we're going to, level everybody. We had about 25 different tags. Let me tell you, that was a big, big, big mistake. I would highly recommend that you do not develop more than 10 tags. Here's a quick hit list if you want to keep it short and sweet. Prospects are just that. They are buyers. They are people that want to buy from you. If you want to have another one called clients, existing clients, fine. Referral sources, these are people who will not buy from you, but they can refer you into a buyer. Vendors, they want you to buy from them. And then competitors, sometimes they can be friendly, but sometimes, people change jobs and now they're competing for the same type of buyer. Colleagues, this is my dumping ground for everybody else, okay? You might want to add family, friends, et cetera, like I did. But this is a quick, if you want to keep it short and sweet, 5 of them that I would say are probably must-haves. And then create a business plan of what you want to do to outreach to these specific tags. So prospects versus referrals, there's a different strategy. So referrals, if you really want once every month to sit down with lunch, with a referral source, there are some referrals that are better than others. Okay, for us, it happens to be audit partners that happen to be a very good referral source versus attorneys. Prospects, there's also different levels, but you know what? Like I said, we made the big mistake of, doing 5 different levels of prospects, et cetera. It's really hard to manage on an ongoing basis. And I wanted to let CISA talk through Sales Navigator, which is something new within LinkedIn. I think it maybe started a couple of years ago. And can you share some thoughts on, tagging and then, the sales process and Sales Navigator, CISA?
Sure. So definitely you don't want to have too many tags. One of the things that you can do that helps you when you do tag, so for instance, if you have like, under 200 or 300 connections, it's probably not going to be that beneficial for you to tag, because the main benefit in tagging is helping you find people quickly. So for instance, when we do our webinar series, we will promote the webinar to Sonia's connections in LinkedIn, and LinkedIn only lets you send like 50 emails at a time. So it helped us in that sense. But if you don't have that many connections, it's not going to be hugely beneficial to you. But the Sales Navigator tool in LinkedIn allows you, from what I understand, to link, somebody who is going to be a prospect of yours into kind of this, CRM system, which is, God, I can never remember what that stands for, Sonia. What's that again? Customer relationship management. Yeah. Management. Okay. So it's like a customer relationship management tool. So it helps you track your leads or opportunities in that kind of the same way as, we have something called Salesforce that we use. So it's a tool in LinkedIn that allows you to do that all in one place.
Yeah, so I would definitely do a cost-benefit analysis before you purchase Sales Navigator. Now let's get into business branding and that company pages. I really think it's a must-have now. If you do not have a company page in LinkedIn, this is definitely Business Branding 101, 2016 goal that you got to have a company page in LinkedIn. We have ours here. that we have a homepage to. We put our really good content on this page at least monthly. We promote different webinars that we have. And Cisa, can you share with the folks about, how does a company, from a business branding standpoint, really go beyond just their tagline, and how LinkedIn can be used to sell maybe even physical goods, in terms of a business branding aspect in LinkedIn?
Sure. I mean, if you have, for instance, I know there was a question that we had a while back about, white paper, and can you, promote your white paper? So you can do something like, give people, hey, these are 3 things, or, what have you, that make our company, that our company is capable of doing. But to read more about us, you can click on the white paper, and then you can create a link to your profile or to your company, to your company website, from there. There's also about, promoting physical goods. You can also do that if you want to, if you have a new product launch, if you have on your LinkedIn company page, this is a great place to put updates. So if we update ours monthly, so we have our Blog Talk Radio series that we promote our webinar series, but if you have a new product that you want to launch, or, something different, or a new idea, or, a way that you're doing things differently, this is a great place to do it on LinkedIn. As I mentioned before, you also might want to consider if you have a very visual business. So, if you have, we have a cake business, or you have something that is, photography related, and you have something very visual that you want to promote. So again, you want to probably use Instagram, or use a combination of Instagram and LinkedIn and maybe YouTube. All of those things together can work well.
Yeah. And then let's not forget about linking your actual website and those blogs. So, Cisa, can you share with us how we've seen some best practices on connecting that LinkedIn company page back to the website?
Yeah, so it's been really a wonderful tool for us. I mean, we've done so much with LinkedIn, and then also, as Sonia mentioned, when we do our blogging, of course, we try to keep things short, we keep things relevant, and then what we do is we direct people to our website if they want to learn more. So when you do the blogging on LinkedIn, we do some visuals, we actually link it to a YouTube video that we have, and then we have links to our website so people can read more about us. So you don't want to bombard them in one place with LinkedIn. You want to basically give them a taste, and then have them, if they want to read more, they can go on your website to read more.
That's right. We actually created a little launch schedule, so that way we knew what was going to hit the website. We knew what was going to hit the LinkedIn company page, which was a different date. Mm-hmm. Then we knew what was going to happen on my personal profile versus the staff, et cetera. So that way it looked like that messaging. That's why we kind of stick to a monthly production of content, is because you can literally have almost every week something else, some venue, some aspect, I should say, of LinkedIn or your website or your company page, et cetera, is going to get hit, including YouTube. Right, Cisa?
Right, exactly. We actually had somebody that we interviewed on Blog Talk Radio, and she is an attorney, and said she actually started creating videos weekly. And then thought, oh my gosh, what have we gotten ourselves into? And it was way too much to maintain. So really think strategically about how often you want to create content and how often you want to post, because people will expect that regularly. If you start weekly, they're going to expect something weekly.
Yeah, I think quarterly might be a good way of thinking through things.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so cute that it did
that.
Share about?
Oh yeah,
I love it. It's like an effect. It's like a curtain effect.
Yes. Can you help us kind of distinguish about content creation, but more importantly, the image? The first thing that people think, and you know this, the first thing people think about, like a dentist or an accountant that you follow. Share the best practices that you've learned over the years about sending that right message.
Yeah, so you really want to be, careful and strategic about the messaging. You want to create content that fits the image of your company. So you don't want to stray too far from, for instance, we do internal audit services, and we also do, IT, and we do some other things. So you really want to do something that's going to be consistent with the messaging of your company. That doesn't mean obviously creating the same message, but it also means, making sure that you stick to the things that you know and that you do well, and create that subject matter expertise in that vein, when you post things.
And then let's talk about measuring results, because we talked about different platforms earlier, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, et cetera. What have you seen work best in terms of when to measure? Yeah.
Right. So we measure our social media results, quarterly. So it's things like from our webinar series, for instance, did we secure appointments during those webinar series? We also base it on how many people registered for our webinar, how many people actually attended, and then other social media results like, how many downloads. When we have a webinar, we post the slides to SlideShare, for instance. Did we have some views there? Did we have views on YouTube? And whatnot. And then it helps us to figure out what to continue to post. So if we're getting a lot of views on YouTube, for instance, we're going, hey, we've got an audience, we've got a following there, we're going to continue to do that. If we've got lots of followers on LinkedIn, we know that this is working, and we're creating content that works well, so we want to continue that. And by the same token, obviously, if you're seeing, this is like diminishing results, we recently decided, instead of creating a whole production for our webinar, a recording, we decided not to do that. We decided to go ahead and, not do that because we weren't getting that many views.
Right. It allows you to kind of see where to head. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about Blog Talk Radio because I know we're kind of almost getting to the 11 o'clock hour. So we have a Blog Talk Radio channel. It's a compliance channel. It's a web-based radio show that we do. And then, one of the great things that we do there is, again, we are positioning ourselves as subject matter experts and thought leaders in our industry. We create a good script, just really quick, 5 questions. We keep it very short. We invite somebody who we think is going to be great for our audience, but also someone who maybe is a prospect or a referral source for us down the road. We created a wonderful in-mail script so that, people can't say no to it, but we do, of course, cut our losses. We ask 3 times, and, if they don't respond after the third time that we ask them, then, we drop them from there. But it's a wonderful way for us to create great content and position ourselves as subject matter experts with the Blog Talk Radio show.
Yeah, and if you guys want to see our channel on that platform, it's called Compliance Expert. Share with the audience about, how does that tie into our core strategy and kind of the budgeting things, that a few line items within the budget that they want to consider, and maybe where they can pare down on the budget.
Yes. So, of course, I mentioned about, being, positioning yourself as a subject matter expert, and then having guests that are also experts in their field, and, leveraging the interviews for blogs and webcasts. So we kind of, have a rough budget here. It's a monthly subscription for Blog Talk Radio. It's $40 a month. They actually just discontinued the transcript feature, so we're doing that elsewhere. We have a production company that helps us with putting this on YouTube, and then of course there's the labor cost of doing the launch and whatnot. But if you have a limited budget, I would say you could do with just doing the monthly subscription of Blog Talk Radio, because what that will allow you to do is there is actually a way that you can promote it to all of your groups, or promote it on Facebook and other social media platforms straight from Blog Talk Radio. So you may not need to do, the production costs if you don't have the budget for that.
Yeah, and you can also, instead of doing monthly, you can do this quarterly. That's another way. And share with folks about webinars and how we've done that, and also kind of promoting those webinars once we do get into that mindset of doing it.
Yeah. So, I would say if you, if you've created content over time or what have you, if you feel like you have enough content, consider doing a webinar or a joint webinar with somebody. Say for instance, you are an attorney and you have a partnership with an accountant. That might be a really great way for you to, create a webinar series or just create one webinar, because again, you're going to position yourself as a subject matter expert in the field. I think we answered the question. There was somebody asked about promoting your white paper on through a webinar series, and again, you can say, hey, these are some of the key things during the webinar. To learn more, go to our website and you can download our white paper from there. For our webinar series, what we do is we promote it to our groups. So we have a launch schedule that says, okay, we promote to groups 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and 1 week, because we don't, it's like we don't want to leave it to chance. We don't want, first of all, to promote it too soon because it'll be, off of people's radar if you tell them 4 months in advance, here's a webinar. But then you also remind them. When you have control of a group, for instance, when you are the manager or the owner of a group, you have a way of sending announcements, and the announcements go straight to somebody's inbox in Outlook, so that's a wonderful way for you to promote your webinar series. And then we also promote it on Sonia's profile, 2 weeks out, 1 week out, and 1 day before. And we also put it out on Twitter, believe it or not. So just to kind of cover our bases.
And this is just a quick reminder to folks to track your progress. If you do decide to do webinar series, like find out those groups that you are a member of, write a list down, and figure out when you last posted with them. And here's a quick script to a manager. This is the framework. And Cisa, can you kind of walk us through the framework when you need to remind group managers, hey, I got some really good content here?
Right. Yeah. So, you don't want to go, hey, man, you're not posting our stuff because, of course, you win more flies with honey than vinegar. So you want to express gratitude and say, hey, thank you for doing this wonderful thing for the community, that you've got this group, and that, state that you are a subject matter expert and that you're concerned that the members of their groups are not getting the value of this content that you have, and show how what you are posting, so whether it's a webinar or whether it's something that's informational, is going to be of benefit to the group. And then you say to them, hey, here's the action, the call to action. I'd love for you to post our materials, and if you have questions for me, just, here's my contact information. But you want to be nice about it, because we have found that nowadays, instead of people moderating us out of the group or not putting our content up, many of them have allowed us to post our items automatically, without even going through the moderation process.
Yeah, and we actually have shared a script that has worked with group managers to get them to post our content. And it goes back to that old framework that that original framework we were just showing you. We think that if you stick to the framework, you can create your own script and just literally copy and paste with the changes just to the group, naming the group. Let's talk about, since we're on time right now, we're about to wrap it up, talk about budgeting your time for social media, Cisa, and how much time should someone budget for this platform?
Yeah. So, and then also speaking of budgets, I know we had one of the questions in advance about premium membership and is it worth it. The premium membership really allows you to send in mails, so it's sending emails basically to people that you don't know and that you're not connected to. So I would say it's definitely worth it for that reason. So you have to determine how much time you're going to spend on social media. Hootsuite and Marketo are some platforms pretty much that you can use that will allow you to, for instance, create all the content and then basically click a button and determine when something is going to be launched. So whether you're going to do it daily, whether it's going to be monthly. These services do cost per platform. They allow you, I think, only 3 different platforms for free, and then after that, you have to pay for them. So we determined it wasn't really so much the cost, but we had so many different groups and so many different platforms that we were doing. It wasn't a best practice for us, but you might want to consider these if this is something that you want to post on a regular basis. What else? We were going to talk about a little bit about we talked about the connected app already. Okay, great.
Yeah. And any questions, because we're wrapping it up, and Cisa and I would love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. If there's any questions that happen to come up, obviously after this webinar, here's our LinkedIn profile, and we have some direct contact phone numbers. So please submit it in the chat box. We're looking forward to getting some questions.
Yeah, and if you ask to connect with us, sorry, Brent. I was going to say, if you ask to connect with us and we don't know who you are, do a personalized script. Practice what you just learned.
Great. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Sonia and Cisa, for all of that very insightful information. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to use that chat box. It's a little bubble, I think, in the center. You can do it at all, or you can do it at the host or at Sonia. We did have a couple questions that did come in. In terms of devoting resources, we've talked both about personal versus business marketing. Does one take precedent over the other, or are they equally important?
Ooh, my quick 5-second response would be, I would go with person first and then my company second, because we're in a people business, and they immediately go to my profile first and then they go to my business second, unfortunately. I would like it the other way around, but I don't know. Cisa, do you have thoughts?
I agree with that too, because of course, you may also change jobs. So if you're spending time on your personal profile or personal things, I would say that would go first.
At this point, we are running about 5 minutes over. Again, feel free to contact Sonia and Cisa. But thank you so much, both of you, for all of your help with this webinar. We really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you
it was
for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.